I grew up in the tiny country of Belize, where the locals spoke Creole. They had a saying, if it no so, it nearly so. And that is how it is with this tale about my dad and a goat. Back in the 80s, my dad was the location manager for the movie The Mosquito Coast, starring Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. And yes, and one day they were filming in the middle of the jungle, and the director decided that he needed a goat for the scene. The problem was they were in the middle of the jungle, but he wanted my dad to go find one, and the closest village was across the border in Guatemala. And my dad was a little bit nervous because there was a long-standing dispute between Guatemala and Belize. And when my parents first moved there, they were told that you should just not go over the border, especially with Belizean license plates. But he had to get a goat. So he went over the border and arrived at this village, and all of the villagers came out, and they saw his pickup with the Belizean license plates, and the first question they asked was, "Are you Belizean?" And he's like, "No, soy americano, americano." And so they let him get out of his pickup truck, and he told them, "I'm there to buy a goat." Well, it turns out that there was only one goat in the entire village. And it was a very special goat because it was going to be eaten at the wedding of the village chief's daughter the following month. But the elders got together and they decided that he could borrow the goat for 2 days and $200 US. All was well until the next day. He arrives at the set, and the goat is lying on the ground, and it's panting heavily, and it's bloated as big as a hot air balloon. And my dad was in 4-H as a kid, and he knew if he punctured the belly, it would release the gas and save the goat. So he got out his rusty pocket knife and was about to stab the goat when Helen Mirren flung herself over the puffed up mill and refused to let him deflate it. So he's like pacing up and down thinking, holy cow, if the goat dies, the Guatemalans are going to have my hide. So Harrison Ford comes over to him and says, "Hey Larry, if you need a gun, I have one in the trailer." Thanks, Harrison, but what I really need is for Helen to get off the goat. So he pulled her off the goat, and they managed to get the goat, tied it up in the back of his pickup, and he had his assistant race to Belize City to the vet to try and save it. Well, as the assistant's driving along, he looks out of the rearview mirror and sees that the goat has lifted off. It looked like a balloon in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Then the rope came loose, and to his horror, the goat was swept away with the wind, and all he could do was watch it until it became a speck in the sky. So when my dad got the news, he was beside himself, and he told the director, "There's no way I'm going back to Guatemala without a goat." So the director thought about it, and he decided to call his friend, Francis Ford Coppola, who actually has a mountain resort in Belize with a petting zoo. Unfortunately, he didn't have a goat, but he offered to give a tapir, which is a cross between a rhino and a pig. And my dad's like, "I don't care, I'll take the tapir. I just, need to give them something, but I'm going to take Harrison too with his gun just in case." So my dad and Harrison go to the village, and all of the villagers come out again, and they surround him. They have machetes too, and Dad's trying to explain what happened, and they're just coming closer. And Harrison is like groping in his pocket for the gun, and almost as soon as he took it out, a villager recognized him from a pirated tape of Star Wars and yelled, "Han Solo, Han Solo, Han Solo!" And all the villagers dropped their machetes and wanted to get his autograph. Meanwhile, the village elders decide that they'll spare their lives, but they were going to keep the tapir and $200 more US. So my dad paid them what they wanted, grabbed Harrison, and they got over the border, and he was just so happy to be safe in Belize again. And he chuckles about it to this day. And he says, to this day, the Guatemalans are still upset because police got their goat.